I know you guys have questions, and I have questions too, but I guess we need someone to ask those questions too. So with no further ado, please help me welcome out our guest at this time. You know her from Chasing Amy, Dazed and Confused, Big Daddy, Mallrats, and so much more. Please help me welcome at this time, Joey Lauren Adams.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How the folks of Columbus treating you so far?
So far, so good.
So far,
yeah,
so
really, really nice people.
Yeah. So is this your first time here in Columbus, or? Yeah.
I think so.
You guys have been by Joey's table, said hi, by some 8x10s, told her stories that, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, 1993, I was 13 years old and Dazed and Confused came out, and you were wearing that crop top.
Yeah.
Did some things to a boy.
Yeah, my husband felt the same way.
So I have to know, how does one go from Arkansas to Australia and then eventually to Hollywood and to become an actor? How does that happen?
Yeah. I think I was like from a very, very young age, I was raised in Arkansas, Southern Baptist. So we were in the church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And so that was kind of my first time experiencing like acting. Like I've always played the hooker with the heart of gold because I was a Mary Magdalene in the like church. And we would do little plays for the like big church. So that was kind of like my first feeling of like performing in front of an audience and liking it. And then in 7th grade, because of small town, whatever, everyone from all the surrounding counties went to the same school. So we had no one to play football with. So there were 7 football teams within the one school. So there were 7 cheerleading squads. And so growing up, like my next door neighbors, there were 2 girls, and then I had a sister. So my sister was the oldest, Lindley, then my sister, then Cecily, then me. So like my sister had been a cowboy, Lindley was a Viking, Cecily was whatever, a Raider, and it was just like, it wasn't will you make cheerleader, it was which team will you be on? Like, am I gonna be a Viking like my sister? Or like my mom had already bought me the shoe. Like there was just like, everybody made cheerleader. And did the tryouts, whatever, and then we go down and they've posted and we're looking and it's like, well, I'm not gonna be a Viking, I'm not gonna be a Raider, and I'm not gonna be, and it was like me and 8 girls didn't make cheerleader. So we were in like PE class while the cheerleaders were like on the other side of the gym doing their cheers, and we had these like really shitty little jumper outfits we had to wear. And I was just like, fuck this. So I got involved in drama. That's when I became an office monitor, and then that sort of became then my thing is gonna be drama. And so then in 8th grade, I was president of the drama club. And it kind of changed the whole course of my life, because in small southern towns, like football, like sports is the thing. And I think had I made cheerleader, I would have continued on, but instead I just like went the drama route. And then had a really good drama teacher in high school who was amazing and just encouraged me. And then I think my mom was very smart, because I was kind of getting bored, and found out about me that I could be an exchange student to Australia. And so that just helped in like, you know, I flew halfway around the world by myself. And, you know, and you get off the plane, and I was in Sydney for a few days before I went to Canberra, where my family was. But it's just like you kind of realize like, I can do this, I can move to a new place, I can fit in, I can make new friends, this is cool. The school systems there were, you only went to 11th and 12th grade if you were going on to college.
Oh, okay.
If you didn't, you would just go to like a tech school, because I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna need a college degree, which is kind of cool. But the school systems were very much like universities in that the campuses were open. You had English on Tuesday, Thursday. It was like a college class schedule. And, you know, and then we were like studying playwrights that I had never heard of. And so it was just kind of like traveling is cool, and going to new places. It's like, what else don't I know? And so I came back, and it felt very much like taking a step backwards, and then just kind of struggled a little bit. But then Mary Steenburgen is from my hometown, and my granddad taught her Sunday school. So there was a kind of a connection, and so I used to sit in front of her house and in my car and just kind of think, like, if she did it, then there's a chance that I could do it. And then there was also like, what are the chances 2 people from North Little Rock are gonna make it? Yeah, odds aren't good. But it was just, I don't know, it was just something like, had she not been from my hometown, I don't know that I would have had the guts to like, but that combined with having gone to Australia, I just worked 3 jobs and I saved my money and bought a plane ticket.
So I have to ask this, does everything in Australia want to kill you? Like,
no.
Like all the snakes and birds and scorpion, everything else that they got over there?
Just the alcohol. Yeah, they drink a lot there.
No kangaroos or koala bears? Oh, man.
But it being named Joey was not the best thing, being in Australia.
I expected kangaroos on every corner.
Yeah, it's like baby Joey, and yeah.
And so what was your first, after you decided to pursue this more, what was your first real job, your first real project?
My first real job, because I lived in San Diego for a year because my mom had a friend who had a friend who lived there, just to kind of start, and moved to LA. I tried to get into acting, met a lot of sleazy, horrible people. And then I was kind of like, if you have to sleep with someone to get into this world, it's not a world I'm interested in. And I had a backup plan. I was going to go to the Gemological Institute of America and be a jewelry designer. So that was like plan B. And then I met this artist, and he, at the time when we met, had already bought a ticket. He was going to Bali in like a month to do this sculpture. And so he left me a bunch of paintings, and he said, if you can sell any of these and buy a plane ticket, bring some paints and come see me. And so I sold a couple of his paintings, bought a plane ticket, went and saw him. We came back to LA. We were there like 6 months, came back to LA. And then he got a job doing the paintings on a film called Zandali with Nick Cage, where Nick Cage plays an artist. And so my boyfriend at the time did the paintings that Nick did in the film.
Oh, wow.
But I was there, we were in New Orleans. They put us up in New Orleans, and I was baking biscuits for the crew and just hanging out. And the lead girl, I was just kind of watching, like, I could do that. I know I could do that. And then I just became friends with the producer and his wife. And so when the film wrapped and we went back to LA, he called me up and he was like, I have a friend who's a casting director, will you go in and read for her? And I did, and she had me read a scene from Mystic Pizza, I remember.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, she called and she's like, there's a series called Parenthood. I want you to come in and read for it. So I went in and read. And then, I don't know how familiar you guys are, but like in the television world, if they're casting a series or a pilot, they always take 3 choices to the network. Like, you go audition for the casting director, then you go audition for the writers and the producers, and then they may team you with the actors to see if you have chemistry. But then for the final audition, they take 3 people, and you have to have a contract negotiated because they want the bargaining power. So, because they can't be like, yeah, we want you, now let's negotiate.
Right.
It's like, it could be you, let's negotiate a contract. And I didn't have an agent. So I was able to get a good agent because it was my first audition, and I was needing a contract negotiated. And then I didn't get that show, but I had then an agent who kept sending me out, and I got the pilot that was a spinoff of Married with Children called Top of the Heap.
Oh, yeah, Top of the Heap, yes.
It was like one line in the pilot. And then that turned into, we did like 6 episodes, and then they revamped it. We did another 6, and then I got Dazed and Confused. And
then speaking of Married with Children, you actually did several characters.
Yeah, because when I went into audition for the pilot of the spinoff, I I remember I was sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, just waiting to go in, and this guy walked down the hallway who looked like a delivery man, or like he had long, scraggly hair and like a pot belly, and he was wearing like a raggedy t-shirt and jeans, and he walked by, and I was like, hey, how you doing? And he kind of stopped, and he's like, I'm good, how are you? And I was like, I'm good, I'm just here, I'm auditioning for the show. And he was like, oh, well, good luck. And I was like, thanks. And then when I walk in the room, it was Ron Levitt, who was the creator of Married with Children and all that. And I think, like, because no one else spoke to him because he looked like, but he was, because the audition was one line. So I was kind of like, I got it. Because he was like, hi again. I was like, hi, I got this. But because, like, while they were revamping the show, I was under contract, so I wasn't able to take other work. So in order for me to be able to pay my rent, he put me on Married with Children to help me out in between those two shows.
That's nice.
Really nice man.
So
really nice man.
Your advice would be to say hello to everybody.
Everybody,
then, right?
yeah.
Right.
You never know in Hollywood who
Right,
you're
you never
talking
know.
to. Yeah.
That's great. And then so, Dazed and Confused, you had cheerleader experience.
I did.
Well, or at
Yes.
least the try. So, you were able to use some of that for your audition or for the role? Like once you're like, oh yeah, I know this mindset.
I mean, having grown up in Arkansas, we're always about 20 years behind, but it's like, that's exactly how I grew up.
Right.
Like, we had Camp Robinson was our street that we cruised, and what car you were driving was very important, and everyone would like wash and wax their car. And then the Electric Cowboy was our arcade, and then we would have keg parties in the woods. Like that was my high school experience. And so I could relate to the movie, to say the least. Yeah.
Right, you said 20 years behind, so
Yeah,
right in the 70s,
yeah.
perfect.
The music, I knew all the music.
Right,
and
so that probably helped a ton.
Yeah.
Now I know a lot of people know you from Kevin's View Askew Universe movies. Huge Chase. Actually, I just watched Chase and Amy in my hotel room the other night.
Nice.
So one thing I want to talk about especially with Chase and Amy is the song "Alive" that you sang. So you actually wrote that too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. So how long did it take you to write that? Because it's an incredible song.
It's there was this brief period in my life because my dad played guitar. My dad was very musical and played guitar, and I am not musical at all, unfortunately. But I was like, I'm gonna get a guitar. I'm gonna learn to play guitar. And so I got a guitar, and I think I was trying to connect to him or something. But anyway, I would write 3 songs a day that were just really cheesy. Like one of them was called Daddy's Dead and Mama's Head. They were all sort of cheesy country western songs. And I would make anyone who came to see me listen to them. And so when we were doing Chasing Amy, Kevin, I think originally, if memory serves, there was a song in Jungle Book, the movie, that he wanted to use, but then when he found out how much it was going to cost, he was like, "Why don't you have some songs, Joey?" I was like, "Yeah, I got songs." So originally that song was "Where Are You, Darlin'," because it was a country song, and he was like, "Let's just blues it up a little," and it's "Where Are You, Baby," and so. Yeah, so we used that song.
That's incredible. Did you think for a moment, man, I need to get a song on a soundtrack for every movie I do?
I know, yeah. There was actually another movie called Sleep With Me that, before Chasing Amy, where I think that Parker Posey was in it, and Eric Stoltz, and Meg Tilly, and Parker Posey, we had just come off Dazed and Confused, and so we were kind of these ancillary characters, but we work well together, and they kept giving us more. And then I think the movie ended up short, and they were like, let's do another scene with Parker and Joey. And so he actually shot in my apartment. And the scene is a bunch of guys, and they needed 2 fill-ins for the poker game. And they're very serious about poker, but Parker and I aren't. And so we're making jokes, and I keep trying to sing my songs that I've written. So I sang 2 songs in that movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how hard, obviously, if you're doing a movie and you're speaking, it might take a cut or 2 or maybe 3 to get it right. How many times are you for a song are you singing?
And Sleep With Me, we did it live because it was the joke was I wasn't that good of a songwriter, so like I could mess it. It worked for Chasing Amy. We actually went in a studio and recorded the song before we actually shot the scene. So it was pre-recorded. So then I'm just lip syncing in the scene, yeah. But thank God, because I really can't sing. And so in the studio, they were able to help me out a little.
Well, I mean, I think they helped out tremendous.
Yeah, they did.
Fantastic. And then you were in Mallrats as well. There's rumors of a possible sequel. Should everyone just go bother Kevin this weekend and find out about the sequel?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say anything?
He's been talking about that for a while, but I don't think it's his fault. I think that, honestly, it's Universal owns the rights to the movie, obviously. They don't want to make it. And I think at one point Kevin had investors that wanted to make it, but then Universal was like, okay, they can have that, but we get the domestic distribution, which that's how a financer makes their money back. So the financer's like, well, we need the domestic if we're putting up the money. So it's in that world. I don't think it's a Kevin doesn't want to do it thing.
I think he definitely does want to do it.
And it would be great, yeah.
Did you think when doing these movies that you would be here in 2022 still talking about Chasing Amy, still talking about Mallrats?
No, I didn't. No, and it's tough for me to do. I just telling Brian, I was like, Brian, come do the panel with me, O'Halloran, because he loves them and he's really good at them and he's funny.
Yes.
And he was like, I was like, I hate them. He was like, why? And I'm like, because it just feels like I've been talking about these movies for so long, and at a certain point, and you guys have probably heard all the stories, I'm sure.
I don't know.
And Kevin tells them much better anyway.
And then you got into directing as well. You've directed music videos, you've directed movies. Do you like that aspect, the behind the scenes, behind the camera?
I do actually. I like both, but directing is, with the film that I directed, I wrote and directed it. So there's something very magical about walking on set and what was once a blank piece of paper is now moving around and talking, and the wallpaper looks just like you had imagined. And it's more collaborative because you're working with the makeup and the production design. You're working with all the departments, and you're just I get antsy when it's you're doing a film and you go to set and you rehearse the scene and then you go back to your trailer while they light and you're in your trailer and you're just sitting there and then you go back and then you shoot for maybe 30 minutes and then it's another 3 hours before you get to, it's the creative part of it is such a short period of the day, whereas in directing, you're the first one there, you're kind of the last one to leave, and you're involved in every aspect of it. And it feels more, I get more, which I get in acting as well, but it's what I've always loved about acting and this career is that when you're working with people and you're all kind of operating on a higher level, you become something bigger than yourself. And it's kind of, to me, a winning football team that wins a Super Bowl. When everyone's on their A game and you're all there and you've all worked creatively to kind of get to that place, you become, it's bigger than you. And it's a really nice, great feeling.
I want to say, first off, congratulations on your recent appearance on The L Word.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Has anybody been watching?
I don't know if my episode is aired. Maybe it has. I
think it aired. I think just
Sunday.
Just last week. I think so.
Okay.
So, can you tell us a little bit about working on The L Word and how that came about?
Yeah, that was. It all comes back to Chasing Amy. My entire life. I guess the creator asked Leisha, who plays Alice, if you could work with anyone, who would you want to work with? And Chasing Amy was a big movie for her.
Right.
And she was Joey Adams. So they just kind of wrote me in and called and were like, do you want to come do this? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great.
Again, so we do have a mic right there. If you guys have questions, feel free to line up. I still have some questions of my own, so just don't rush. One of my favorite questions to ask is when you're here at a convention, whether it's at a table next to you in the green room or on studio, have you had that fanboy moment where you saw somebody and either you couldn't speak or you put your foot in your mouth and you spoke too much and maybe revealed too much?
Yeah, that's only ever happened to me once, and it wasn't at a con. It was Johnny Cash. I met Johnny Cash, and I was like, because I used to, like my mom used to thought I was a weird kid, but Johnny Cash used to have this kind of variety show on television, and it was like a weekly show, and he would open it every show dressed in black, and he would sing the song, "I'm the Man in Black." And it was about how he wore the black for the downtrodden and the poor and those living on the hungry side of town. And it would just make me cry of how kind this man was. And I thought he was so sexy. And so I would sleep with his 8-track. And I had moved behind the chair in the living room at that point because I hated my sister. So I lived behind the chair in the living room and slept with the Johnny Cash 8-track. And my mom would give me pictures of Donny Osmond and don't you think he's cute? And it's no, Johnny. So I had always just been madly in love with Johnny Cash. And then I had a friend when I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, and he was friends with Johnny Cash's piano player, Earl Poole Ball. And so Johnny was doing a concert outside of LA, and he was like, "Do you want to go? You can meet him." And I was like, yeah. So I had the 8x10 and was waiting before the show. And it was after the show, and it was waiting backstage. And I'm so nervous, and I'm and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say that, and tell him, and waiting. And then it was literally you just felt him walk in the room, because he's got such a presence, and he just does. And I knew he had walked in the room, and I turned around, and there he was, and he walked around, and finally he made it over to us, and my friend introduced us, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Joey," and he's like, "I'm Johnny." He's like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "Arkansas," because he's from Arkansas. And then he was like, "Oh," and I was like, "I've been in love with you since I was 5%. I slept with your 8-track. And I was in tears, just an idiot. Yeah, but that was the one and only.
That's amazing.
It's the only autograph I have. Yeah.
Oh, that's the only autograph.
Yeah.
That's amazing in itself as well. I mean, because you get to traveling so much and meeting people. But so that's.
But it's I have that autograph, but I don't Then it was kind of what do you do with it? It's not on my wall. It's not
on the wall.
No, but it kind of faded, and I don't know. It's the memory is I don't need the.
Right, you don't need that tangible item. You have that memory.
I know I met Johnny Cash.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Hi.
Hi.
So I just wanted to ask, what's it like working with Billy Ray Cyrus?
Billy Ray, he's fun. He's a lot of fun. Just so, it's weird because he has a lot of television experience, obviously, and movie experience, but he's so deferential to everyone else on set. Just oh my God, more, way more than. It's no, Billy, you've kind of had a career yourself. Just the nicest guy. But he's also, he's super spiritual. He's one of those people, and it's not fake or anything. But there's those people that are just oh my God, did you just see that? And it's the weirdest thing that just, that's always happening in his world. And it's very magical, and once he points it out, you're oh wow, I do see that. And we were doing a press line once, I think we were at the CMT Awards or something, and there was a reporter there, and she obviously had a connection with him several years ago. And he had when he had gone through the line, and she had asked him a question, she was pregnant. And he touched it, and he was like, "It's a girl." And then, so we were thinking, she was like, "You were right, it was a girl." He's just he'll do that to just be talking. He's touch, it's it's gonna be a girl, and and a beautiful, and move on, and he's just magical that way. He's a really, really, really interesting, but kind guy, yeah.
Well, I loved Still the King.
I loved
and
it too.
I wish it was still on. 'Cause
I do
it was
too.
Hysterical.
I know.
Thank
It
you.
was fun.
Is there a project, or a show, or a movie that you've done that maybe you kind of put on the back burner of your mind because you assume everyone's just going to come talk to you about Chase and Amy, that people come and talk to you and be like, I really loved you in so and so, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like, and that it makes you go, oh yeah, like
Right,
I
right.
had a lot of fun. Is there one of those, or
There's
several?
occasionally like Cool Dry Place is a movie that not a lot of
Oh.
people saw, but the ones that did really liked it. When I first started doing conventions, I was shocked that like so many people liked Biodome. Because I love the movie. I do. I think it's like, I had so much fun doing that movie. I like the producer and director, they ended up being like the people that I came up, like they're still my best friends to this day. And we came up in the business together. So I just have, and Polly was so sweet. And it was just we were all just so, because that was a film where like, these like producers were just like, we have this like material, and they just picked Jason and Dan, who were like 24 at the time, and it was like, y'all go make a movie. And they didn't know what they were doing. We're out in the desert, like shooting, and there's weird stuff happening, and it's Polly and Steven, and like, it was crazy, and it was fun.
So were you surprised that Polly's off stage personality, as opposed to his, were you just expecting him to always be Polly?
He is slightly always on.
Yes.
He's one of those, like, it's interesting, because I was fortunate enough, because I was in, like, Coneheads, and I had a part in Wayne's World 2 that I think got cut, but I got to work and meet, like, Chris Farley and Dana Carvey and Mike Myers and, like, all those good, David Spade, and then work with Adam Sandler, and I found that, like, most comedians are somewhat always on, so it's kind of hard to, like, really get to know, there's just this wall.
Right.
I don't know. But like Adam Sandler, not that at all. Like very shy, very humble, very sweet. You can have a serious conversation. Like just you would never guess he's a comedian.
Right.
You
named a lot of SNL alums. Could you see yourself doing a show like SNL?
I would love to.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I just love stupid comedy. Like it's fun and.
Do you have like favorite SNL characters that that you remember?
How do you like Chris Farley? I like the old like.
The 90s cast?
I'm blanking on, what's her name? Gina, in the original cast.
Oh,
She's passed away.
Radcliffe?
Yeah.
Gilda Radcliffe.
Yeah. And Lily Tomlin, like those,
Right.
and like Chevy Chase, and yeah.
That's some good names there.
I know.
Hello.
Hi. So I graduated from high school in 1995, which 2 years after Dazed and Confused came out, and we actually had a theater near our hometown that played it every Friday and Saturday night at 11:45 p.m. for like years.
Really?
And it was kind of like our how-to manual for like how to party. So I'm curious, like, was there like a point when you kind of realized that like this fairly like small, movie was kind of like a force, like it sort of was like a cultural phenomenon? Like,
Yeah, it was very gradual, because, it was my first film, so and it was a Universal, like it was a studio film. It wasn't considered an indie. But when we were making the film, like I just felt like I'm doing a studio film, like this is huge. And then like there was a ton of hype around it, and like Interview Magazine had done, like there was all this hype, and that it was going to be this really big movie, and then it tanked at the box office, and it was kind of like, oh, that's weird, it's just lesson learned. So like that's like I was doing Mallrats, and Kevin drove me to the airport when I wrapped that, and I'd just gotten offered Biodome, and he was like, don't do a Pauly Shore film, Mallrats is going to be huge, and I was like, yeah. I'm doing, and then of course Mallrats tanked. Like I had been there, done that. But it was just kind of like slowly over time, I'd be doing a film or something and like working with extras or whatever, and they would come up, the background, and like quote a line to me. And I was like, oh, you saw that film? And then they would quote like 8 more lines. And they're like, yeah, I've seen it like 20 times. And slowly then I started to realize like, oh, this is, and then I was kind of pissed that I was in it because it would be the movie that I don't watch a lot of movies over and over, but that would be one that I would like always, if I weren't in, I would, you know, anytime it was on, I would probably let it play. But because I'm in it, I can't watch myself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you don't like to watch yourself?
I know.
Or no?
No, and I was telling someone this earlier, but it's like, I mean, there's several reasons. Like, it's hard to watch yourself, you know, and then you're just kind of like, I don't know, when I'm watching a movie I'm in, it's like, oh, it was so hot that day. Or I can see the crew, because I remember the set, and I remember where the crew was, and so it takes away the movie magic in a weird way.
That makes a ton of sense.
And so then if I watch one of mine and then I try and watch just a movie I'm not in, it's hard to get lost and escape in the movie magic. So it's like, I don't like to watch, or even like films that have like people I know really well in. Like I haven't seen Clerks 3 yet.
You haven't seen Clerks
No,
3?
because I just know them so well. And again, it's like that like it takes that movie magic away.
Have you told O'Halloran, because I know. He doesn't do anything except talk about Clerks 3 right now, so I'm gonna tell him.
You can tell him. I told Kevin, but yeah, I'll see. I will watch it.
Speaking of watching things, you know, 2 years ago, we pretty much went to a lockdown and couldn't do anything. We were all quarantined, so we all watched Netflix and Hulu.
Tiger King.
Yeah. So what were the shows that you ended up watching during that time?
Tiger King, Schitt's Creek. Yeah. What's the one where she plays the Russian queen? Do you guys know? It's so good. The Great. Oh my God, The Great is so good. We watched that. I'm trying to think. Oh, the soccer one in England.
Oh, Ted Lasso.
Yes, Ted Lasso.
Greatest
Yeah.
TV show ever.
It was kind of cool because there was those feel good, like Schitt's Creek
Right.
and Ted Lasso were feel good, which I think we needed at that
Right.
time because there was shit going on in politics and
Right.
yeah, and COVID, and half your family won't get vaccinated and half is, and oh yeah, you just needed some like nice things, yeah.
Absolutely. So I see we have Santa back there, and it's here we are in December. How do you go out decorating for Christmas? How do you
Yeah,
how do you
we
handle
just
it?
moved actually to Arkansas because like COVID I think was the last straw for us in LA.
Oh, okay.
And we moved, which is where I'm from, but we moved to Hot Springs and we bought this like old 1860, 79 house. And like after living there a few weeks, like I realized there was this like basement, like, and I went inside and it's just packed with Christmas decorations. So we got all those out recently and put them all up. Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. I'm a huge fan of decorating for Christmas.
Are you?
Like, yes, like all the lights, all the
Really?
inflatables, all the
The inflatables?
Yes, inflatables.
Because there's a very like, some people don't like the inflatables, some people do.
All right, so show of hands. How many people like it, Christmas inflatables? Oh man, this is not going to go well
How many
for me.
think they're like kind of lazy? Yeah. They're lazy. Like all you have to do is like blow them up. How much work is that?
I'm hurt. I'm hurt. Gosh. All right, man.
So no, I don't have any inflatables.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to say to our fine folks here in Columbus?
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming out.
Are you going back to your table now?
I'm going back to my table. I've been busy. I have a film called The Oak coming out that's a horror film. Providence, which is the same people that did Still the King. So it's a really good, really good
So you got a
movie.
horror film coming out. So what? Okay.
Horror film, and then a film called Providence that Patsy Ponzarello, who created Still the King, directed with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Hamish Patel. It's a really good film.
All right. So I have to ask before we go one last question. So, what if you horror movies? What scares you?
All of them. I don't watch horror films at all. I do not. I'm not because I just can't. Like, because my husband travels, and it's like, I listened to that podcast about the guy that killed all those women in Sacramento. Like, they'd wake up and he'd be over them with a knife. The Golden State Killer. Do you remember? And like, that's my worst fear, is waking up with someone in the room over me.
Well, you have dogs, right? To
I
protect
do,
you.
but they're kind of pussies. Like, I don't know. They would. I know.
And they're little.
They're little.
They're little.
They would maybe wake me up.
Right.
But he would be probably coming in the door. But yeah.
They'd be coming in to snuggle and be like, oh, well, this is our last chance. All right, so thank you all. Thank you, Columbus, for hanging out with us.